All right. Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to this month's webinar, Career Advice for Emerging Leaders, CAUSE Chat with Nonprofit Professionals. My name is Miguel Lopez, pronouns he, him, and his, Fundraising Academy alum, and Prospect Research Analyst at the San Diego Foundation. I will be your moderator for today. Before we get started, a couple notes. This webinar will be conversational with the opportunity to ask questions during, as well as a 30-minute Q&A following the presentation. Please submit any questions you have in the Q&A option within your Zoom controls. The chat function can be used during our community shares, where you may share your ideas with all of the attendees. Closed captioning is available for this webinar. To enable this setting, click the closed caption option in your Zoom controls. Caption size can be adjusted in the video settings under accessibility. And in the days following the webinar, you will receive an email with a link to access the slide deck and recording to review again at your leisure. Next slide. You've got a cause, learn how to fund it. At Fundraising Academy, Cause Selling Education, we enhance fundraiser skills so they can develop and sustain donor relationships to advance their cause in today's growing giving landscape through a proven contemporary curriculum presented by world-class nonprofit fundraising leaders. We also want to take some time to recognize our important affiliate partners who provide training and education to fundraisers nationally. Check out the map to find an institute in your community. Now I'm pleased to introduce today's panelists. Joining us today are Javier Guerrero, the President and CEO of Coastal Roots Farm, Michael Riordan, the Director of Marketing for Compass Community Center, and Suzanne Stone, the Chief Strategic Solutions and Programs Officer for Livestrong. Welcome, everybody, and thank you all for being here. This is a topic that is near and dear to all our hearts, and it is so important for other emerging fundraisers and emerging leaders to hear and learn on this topic. The goal for today's panel is to provide you, the audience, actionable items that you can take to further develop your fundraising skills, elevate your leadership, and build your confidence. Many of what we're going to discuss today isn't laid out in handbooks or taught in school, so I'm excited for you to hear how these successful professionals have navigated their careers and lessons they have learned along the way. This topic is relevant to emerging fundraisers, but I have a feeling it will also be relevant to other emerging nonprofit professionals too. But before we start, and to set the tone, I think it'd be great to ask you, the audience, through a Zoom poll, how many years have y'all been working in the fundraising and nonprofit sector? Our fabulous project coordinator, Christine Kim with Fundraising Academy, will put up a Zoom poll shortly. So how many years of fundraising experience do you have? All right, we have live results going on here. All right. Just a few more seconds before we end the poll and share the results. All right. We have about 42 people voting. Any more, Christine? Okay, it looks like the results are being shared. All right, interesting. We have a majority of folks, no surprise there. 0 to 3 years are the majority. We have a few folks 4 to 10 years and folks in 10+ years. Awesome. So for those folks in their early years, I do hope you have a pen and paper next to you to take some notes as we go along this panel. And I do want to express gratitude to the folks that are in their 10+ years of experience. Thank you for showing support to your emerging leaders. And I do hope you all get something out of this webinar as well. So with that being said, it's time to kick off the panel discussion. So to start off the panel discussion, Michael, Suzanne, Javier, it would be great for all of you to answer this question to understand who you are and where you came from. Following the initial question, it won't be necessary for all three of you to answer each question. So to start off, could you all please tell us a bit more about yourselves and your journey in the nonprofit sector? Michael, would you like to go first, and then Suzanne, Javier?
Sure. Thank you so much, Miguel. And again, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for everyone for having me. My nonprofit journey started at the same time that I would say my authentic life journey started. I came out about 6 years ago, didn't know what to do, where to go, how to live, how to exist. I was very scared and I felt very alone. I went online, I found a group of people at Compass Community Center They had a gender support group. I went into that building, and when I walked into it, I knew immediately that this was something that needed to be a part of my life. And as a nonprofit, I submitted my resume and cover letter. I told them I would wash floors. I didn't care. I was just like, I need to be a part of this organization. And I got in. And I did not intend to be a fundraiser. I did not intend. That was not where I thought my life was going. And it has led me to meet amazing people and have great experiences. And I don't think I'll ever leave the nonprofit sector. But that's it. I was finding myself and wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. And I found Compass.
I'll go next. That's great, Michael. So I'm Suzanne Stone, and I have been in the nonprofit community for over 25 years. So this is my career. I've been a part of different nonprofits, but it did not start out that way. When I was going through school, there is no school for nonprofits. There was no class on fundraising. I didn't even know what a nonprofit was. My degree is in radio, television, and film production. And the reason for that is because I like to tell stories, not tall tales, but stories. And I love connecting with people. And so my career started in the television industry and behind the camera. And I was writing and producing and editing stories. And my goal was to make people laugh or cry or to move them to do something. And fast forward through a lot of my life, and I realized the television industry was just a little too mean for me. And but it was the only thing I knew at the time, right? That's what I'd been doing for many years. And so the mother of YouTube, or I call it the mother of YouTube. The mother of YouTube is public access television. So before YouTube existed, we had Wayne's World. So if you're too young to have any idea what I'm talking about, please go on Saturday Night Live, YouTube, and watch Wayne's World. And I went to work for public access television stations, ended up running 2 of them. And that's how I got into nonprofit. But what really sold me on it was when somebody came up to me after a class I taught them how to make a television show, how to edit, how to write. And this woman came up to me a few months later and said, "You've changed my life." And I said, "What are you talking about?" "I haven't done anything. I just taught you how to plug in cables." And she was like, "No, I have this quilting show. And now all these people are ordering quilts from me. And I this is like now a business for me. You've changed my life." Well, I was totally hooked. I've been a nonprofit ever since. So what I found is that initial love, that passion of telling stories and moving people to act is why I'm still in nonprofit and why I love it. And I'm passionate about making impact.
Cool. So my name is Javier Guerrero, and I've been working in nonprofits for a little over 20 years. I would actually say it kind of goes back to volunteering and doing community service work back to like when I was probably in high school. I was in scouting, Eagle Scout, and just, we were just kind of conditioned to go out and volunteer and get involved in the community as well as through my high school. But then when I went to University of San Diego, again, I would say just kind of following the passions as you were just saying, Suzanne. Freshman, started out at University of San Diego, was interested in anthropology, walked down to the Museum of Man, now the Museum of Us, and said, "Hey, can I volunteer?" Not knowing that I could actually get college credit. And then they said, "Oh, well, what's your background?" And I said, "Well, my art, and And so I ended up going and volunteering there off and on in collections in the exhibits department for 4 years. That's important because later on when I went off to finish college and then graduate school, keeping those relations, having done that internship program, they actually contacted me before finishing my master's and said, "Would you like to come work for the museum?" And I had different things that I was interested in doing, but I was like, well, let's try this out. And so I came, and that really kicked it off. So, since that was like in 2000, and just then I've just gone through a couple organizations. I've stayed, I think, pretty true to organizations during that time, and just really love being a part of the community.
That's a really fantastic all. And the theme that I got from all of you is, following your passions and, developing your identity at the beginning of your career. But it all sounds like you all had very unique and special journeys into getting to where you are today. And that's pretty hopeful. Anybody can get to a VP, CEO, director position following their own journey. And to elaborate a little bit further, what are key actions that you all took early in your career that empowered you as a fundraiser and as a leader? I'm looking at potentially professional development, networking, mentorship, education, leadership development. Those are topics that come to mind, but of course, anything that comes to your mind.
I have something that I would share. I mean, I'm a firm believer in, people say like wisdom comes from knowledge and experience, right? So wisdom just doesn't, pop, right? And so with that knowledge and experience, what I've done through my career, which I think helped pushed it, and I've always encouraged other people and people that I've mentored and worked with, is to constantly be learning and building off that experience. So never stop the learning. So, even though I had like a master's degree and, I came into the profession, I realized as I was growing up in responsibility that I didn't really have that business background and wanted more leadership training. And so I enrolled in the extension program at UCSD, and it wasn't the fundraising program, but I really wanted to understand the full scope of what it meant to run an organization or a business. And that proved so invaluable because it gave me the touch. And this was also before like the USD nonprofit program was like in full bloom, so to speak. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. And then I've done other trainings and leadership programs and things along the way. But just never stop learning and really kind of being thoughtful about the experiences. And you kind of got to like teeter between those two things. And that's when the rich kind of wisdom and insights come along. And then definitely always have a mentor or more in your life, and always have a mentee. Like, you need to be giving as much as you're receiving. And of course, in both of those relationships, you're getting and giving both.
I would love to add to that, so for me, school was not my favorite thing. I mean, I'll just be totally honest. School was something I suffered through, not something I was really passionate about. I wasn't a passionate learner. Like, it definitely sounds like you are, Javier. For me, I was like ready to be out. And the thought of getting a master's degree was just like, needles in my eyes. I don't sit still that well. So I learned by my wisdom, to your point. I'm sorry, I keep gesturing to the side of the screen that you're on, but for me, but I learned from, and I would encourage everybody who's listening, do every job you can in a nonprofit. Just because you want to be the fundraiser doesn't mean that, and that job isn't open, it does not matter. Everybody's a fundraiser. Everyone. The receptionist is a fundraiser. The person who takes out the trash is the fundraiser. The social workers, the fundraiser. We're all fundraisers. The CEO is a fundraiser. So, and also I think it allows you to understand what's happening within the organization, whatever organization you're in. You really get a full understanding of how the organization is functioning, and you can build your leadership skills based on this deep understanding of what's happening, in the organization. So if you don't get an MBA, or you don't have those book skills or those other skills, that's what I did. I would encourage you to do that. That has really served me very well, understanding all roles in a nonprofit so that I can lead better.
And I know you said that we didn't all have to answer the same question, but I love what both Javier and Suzanne said. And, listening to what Suzanne was just saying, I think a way to think, we think fundraiser and you think, okay, you're raising money. But really what you're doing is you're connecting people. And the more people you know, the more you understand, the more you know about your organization and other people's organizations. When you go out and you're meeting with people and somebody's talking about something that's passionate to them, if you can recognize that and connect them with somebody else or somebody in your organization, if you're that person that is just really keeping it going for everybody, I think that's a big piece of it. And you're absolutely right. Everybody in your organization is a fundraiser. There's not, everybody is doing that. And then the experience, Javier, the joke is, right, like, if you don't have experience, how do you get it? Borrow other people's until you get your own. Get that mentor. Talk to people. Find the people that are really succeeding and doing the things that you see and you want, and talk to them. Make them friends of yours and learn from them. But it's a people business, and you just got to constantly be meeting people and sharing people. That sounded really horrible. I'm LGBTQ community, so we throw things like that out sometimes. So.
This is a great share, because what I'm hearing is that we're all accountable for our own career progression. We're the ones that are accountable for our education, for our learning, and for our experience. So can you all share a little bit about your first successes in fundraising, and what are the relationships that you leverage? How did mentorship come into play? And what are the steps that you took to get to your first fundraising success?
I'll unmute if that's okay. It's very interesting to see that I did not go to school for this. I've heard that from other people. This is something that happened. I got into it. I am not that person that likes asking for money, right? I don't enjoy that. It actually makes me really feel, duh. But my first success was after one of our first events, and Suzanne, I believe you had said, somebody said you changed their life. I got very similar feedback, and I was so focused on how much my life was being changed by the organization that I worked for that I never really actually kind of went into that next step of having someone saying, you're changing your life. That was the success for me. That was it. And I got to a point where I accepted that, and I was like, okay, everything I've done here is a success, and everything I will do moving forward, everything is extra. I've gotten that one person, and you get hooked to that. You get addicted to that. And if you don't look at it from a dollars and cents perspective, you look at it as, we're in nonprofits for a reason. We're looking to help and improve people's lives. And once you get a taste of that, it doesn't stop.
Okay, I can jump in there. I think it's similar. I think that, a lot of times people come into fundraising because they're just really passionate about what they're doing. And as Suzanne said, it's storytelling, and, getting everybody in your organization really stoked on that. And that breeds a culture of philanthropy, as it's called, of course. And I would say, for my first experience and never really kind of thinking of myself as a fundraiser, when I was still originally at the Museum of Man, Museum of Us, where the resources were needed. We had a big, some of these big events going on, and I happened to have the relationships with the individuals, and the trust was there. And as we know, fundraising takes trust. Leadership takes trust. And so I was like the emissary. I was like the person who was sent on behalf of the organization, saying, like, you have the relationship, so can you go talk to these people? And without kind of saying who that was particular, but this group. And so I went over there, and we were talking, and I said, hey, oh yeah, there's this other thing. This is the need. This is what's going on. Would you be okay with that? And they were just like, that's great. That sounds great. Yeah, we'll do that. And I was like, wow, that was pretty special. Like, and it was more the excitement of knowing how that was going to support the program that we were doing. But when I was leaving the museum, and I was there 8 years, and I had gone from like curator and leaving there as deputy director of operations. And I was kind of thinking, like, what's this next career path? For-profit, non-for-profit, anthropology, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And I remember I spoke with somebody I went back to USC and I spoke with somebody in the alumni department, and I went to go talk with them because I was thinking I'm an alumni and I'm looking for my next career thing. But after sitting and talking with a woman at the alumni center, she goes, "Have you ever thought about fundraising?" And I'm like, "No, what do you mean?" She's like, "No, I really think that you should start thinking about fundraising." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more." And so that's actually, and then in my next role, it was actually focused in marketing and fundraising, neither of which I had really truly owned those roles before. But then when I was allowed to kind of focus in and just do that, oh yeah, it felt good. And then being able to then take that into other jobs. But yeah, I think if you, the big point here is if you really believe in what you're doing and you can tell that story and connect people, like Michael was saying, you're just connecting people's passions with their, obviously their capacity and their interests. It's just a really wonderful feeling, because I often find, and I'm sure for all the people listening in and participating, oftentimes we're so thankful when we get the gift. We just got actually a grant yesterday, and I called the person, and it was a significant grant, and I said, "Thank you so much." And they were like, "Oh no, we're so excited. We're so thankful for this opportunity to support your organization." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to be excited, but this person's actually more excited than I am. And so that's pretty cool feeling, right? When it's mutually beneficial and mutual excitement, I would say.
So I would say my first experience as fundraising was when I was 8. I was making barrettes. I'm going to really date myself. Barrettes, they were a thing, and you took ribbon and you like braided it in the barrette, and then there were strings that hung down, and we would put like beads and stuff on them. And anyway, I wanted to sell these barrettes. I was an entrepreneur very young, and so my mom said, "Well, you're going to have to find," we didn't have a lot. So she was like, "Well, I'm not buying you that ribbon. You're going to have to go figure that out." And so I went to my neighbors, because I could walk, right, or ride my big wheel over there. And so I went to my neighbors and I started asking for money. And I was like, "Hey, I was wondering, like if you would invest in my barrette business, I'll give you free barrettes. I just need the money for the ribbon and the barrettes." And they said yes. It was, but what it really taught me, fast forward and in all seriousness, they didn't say yes to the barrettes. They said yes to me. They said yes because they knew me. They said yes because they trusted me. Sure, I was a kid and I was probably scruffy looking and they felt sorry for me, but really they said yes to me. And so today when we ask for money, any ask that I make, it's only to somebody that trusts me, that knows me, and I know they are passionate about what I'm getting ready to ask them to invest in. And that's really how I like to frame it is, hey, hey, Joe, I'm calling you because I've got this really interesting project that I think you would love to invest in. And yeah, they're not going to get a return of monetary dollars from it, but what they're going to get in return is that thing we were just talking about, the thing that Javier was just talking about with the celebration. Whoever just invested in his project is invested in the feeling, is invested in the impact that they're making by giving you money. And that's their return. That's their return.
I'd like to buy a barrette.
There will be a link in the chat later.
And I can connect you to other people that want barrettes too.
Thanks for promoting your personal business, Suzanne. I'm kidding. I do have a question from one of the audience members, and I think this is relevant to some of what you all are sharing. And this audience member wants to know, how does your personal relationship to money, how has that affected your fundraising, and how did it affect your fundraising initially when you started? Money means power, and we all have specific relationships to money. How did that transform in your fundraising career?
That's a powerful question. So I think all of us have a very different point of view here. And we all come from different spaces, right? Some of us come from a comfortable background, some of us don't. If you, and I'm just going to say, I always like to just be honest. If you are in this business because you want to own the big house and the fancy car and think you're going to travel all over and it's going to be super awesome, that's not going to happen. You're not going to make $1 million in nonprofit, but you will sleep at night. My relationship with money and how it's affected me, one of the things that I had to learn early on is how to talk to people and not be intimidated by people who are in the room that I'm talking to who have a lot of money, right? That somehow I'm not worthy of being there, or I'm not as smart as them, or I'm not as well traveled as them because I can't talk about Greece and I can't talk about what, I can't talk about the boats and the planes and whatever, because that's not my experience. But what I have, and for me, what I've always done is said, you know what, I'm in the room, so I deserve to be there, period. And they're just a human being. And they just have money. It's not a big deal. I don't care. I don't care if they have money. If they're not a nice person, I still don't like you. And I'm not going to ask not nice people for money. I will tell you that also. For me, it's about you as a human being. If you're going to be a part of the nonprofit that I'm a part of, then you need to pass the human being test first. So my relationship with money is that I like it. My son, who is getting, my work in nonprofit is putting my son through college. That's my relationship with money. I think in nonprofit, we're realists here. We're making impact, and we don't drive fancy cars. And if we do, it's because we saved a whole lot of it to buy the fancy car. But don't be afraid of the person in the room that's the millionaire or the billionaire. Don't let them intimidate you. They're just a human being. You got this.
I love hearing that. And I think, as someone who nonprofit, so I don't think it's any big secret, don't make a lot of money. And I think we've said it, we're not in this for the money. But how does that impact me? I think we all want the whales, right? You go into the room where they're talking about boats and trips to Greece, like Suzanne said, and you're like, okay, that this person can write a check and it's probably going to be a life or an organization altering check. That's a big deal. But for me, it's the people that give $10, $20, $30, the repeat donors, $10 a month. When I see those people out there, because I know what it took for them to get that, and I know what it takes for them to give it to us. And I'm thanking them big time. To those people, they are giving you more of a percentage of their income than somebody that can write, a $10,000 check. And, the world moves for those people, right? But the people who are moving the world are the ones that are, again, they're writing those $10, $20, $30 checks. And every single one of those cents is so important to us as an organization. And I just try to make sure that I thank people profusely. Obviously the things go out, they get put in the system, you send the letters out, taxes, all of that. But you see them, you call them, send an email real quick that says, hey, saw this come in today. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much it means to us. That's what people are giving you that money for. They're giving you that money to help people and to change the world. And it's important to let them know that they're doing it and they're succeeding.
Yeah, I think that's such good advice. And, when I was first coming into fundraising and formally, and it was actually an organization, International Health Development Organization, kind of connected to the action sport industry. And people, you couldn't really read somebody because a lot of people, they're wearing board shorts and flip-flops and t-shirts, and they could be, and especially surfing in the water or whatever, you just don't know where people are at, like financially, and people are not really presumptuous about it. So just really kind of knowing that people are people, and which I think Suzanne was also saying, and just really kind of focusing on the impact. I feel like anything I'm talking about in a conversation, it's always going to just circle back to the impact and the work that we're doing, and how that might be of a personal connection or not with the individual. I think the valuing the gifts part as well which was the statement I was going to say when I was starting my little story here, is that somebody gave me this advice early on, and it was with another organization. And it was actually somebody working with the Tony Hawk Foundation. And she said, hey, you just got to thank everybody for every gift at any level, wherever it's at. And in the notion of that, maybe earlier on or coming into the position, maybe it just wasn't there. It wasn't so clear how that should work. But to have somebody early on just kind of spell it out and how you can value each gift really set a good tone. And I was really happy to get that advice early on in the career.
Awesome. Thank you all. And it sounds like you all have worked with really remarkable individuals early in your career that have helped counsel you through these fears or, have helped you challenge your thoughts. Can you all speak a little bit on your first experience working with a fundraising nonprofit mentor? And, what is the value of having a mentor early on in your career?
I mean, I could, or Suzanne, why don't you go?
No, I was going to say, you go, Javier, because I will say that I didn't have a lot of guidance in my early years. I didn't really have a mentor. That certainly would have been something that I could have benefited from. I had bosses, some of whom I liked, others whom I did, maybe didn't, but like we all do. But I think that the couple pieces of advice. One, a former boss said to me, Suzanne, you can go on vacation. Nobody's gonna die. And I was like, what? Just like, you could go on vacation. We're in fundraising. Nobody dies in fundraising. And I was a little shocked and taken aback because I work, 70 hours, 80 hours a week. I was making $35,000 a year, and I felt like nobody else could possibly step in and take my role for a second. Like, I can't take vacation. She's like, yeah, you actually can. You're not that important. It's just fundraising. It's fine. Everybody will be just fine. I know that that's weird advice, but I'm telling you, it changed my mindset and thinking, I guess I am okay, right? Like, I can take vacation. Nonprofit, this is a job, it is true, and it has impact, but it doesn't devalue who I am or what I'm going to do. It can't all encompass me. I have to put my mask on first, right? Before I can put the mask on anybody else. So her basic advice was take care of yourself so that you can go take care of other people. But Javier, you have a lot of mentors, so I think you should answer this question.
Oh, well, I do feel fortunate to, I would say, my sounds kind of true. I told you I was a scout. So my first real mentor was my scoutmaster. And, I found that and he'd lived through World War II and just been a part of different things. And he had been a business leader in the community and so on. And I found none of the scouts didn't really stop to kind of ask him, what are your takeaways on life? I mean, this is somebody who had lived a really intense life, and just to stop and have the conversations with him as somebody who had such an impact in my life kind of prepped me, I think, as I moved through college, where not just your college professors or your college professors, but to actually stop and talk to them about life and career. It wasn't about just the class and what do I need to do to get an A. It was talking about the greater world and what are some of those inspirational things to maybe keep in mind. And then moving beyond, I would say formally for fundraising, that kind of approach, just to be able to listen and to kind of pick out people who maybe even picked you out, right? Somebody who you also got to know, when somebody's inviting you to dance sort of thing, or would like to invite you to dance, and you got to know enough to say, hey, would you have a moment? Could we spend some time together? I really would appreciate having this time with you. And it can be super intimidating. So, I remember sitting in, I was a young nonprofit leader in up and coming, emerging, I guess you'd say, in Balboa Park amongst all those organizations, some powerhouse organizations back in the day when it was like the good old boys club, and it was pretty much all male leadership. And if you've been in San Diego, you know who all these people are, so I won't say any names. But I was sitting down with somebody from one of the organizations, and I just said, we were sitting together, and I was almost like intimidated to say anything. And I was like, "Hi, my name's Javier." And then I said, and we started talking. I said, and totally caught him off guard. I said, "I'm kind of like a young nonprofit person now. What would be the biggest advice that you feel that I should kind of know at this point in my career?" And he was just totally taken aback, like, oh my gosh, like, okay, let's do this. But what he told me, by the way, was trust your instincts. Anytime I have not trusted my instincts, it didn't go well. But I would say kind of seeking out those people, and then there's other people along the journey. And again, it doesn't have to be something formal. And, yes, there's mentorship programs, great mentorship programs, but there's just people that we would just connect and grab coffee or grab lunch or whatever. And I found that in those relationships, there's one gentleman in particular who sadly has passed away now, but we became so close. And there was a point where like I was always asking him questions. And as I grew in my nonprofit and fundraising career, I realized it started to be like, he'd be like, "Wait a second. Can I ask you some questions about fundraising?" And it started to like turn. And I was like, the young Padawan, rising up, and it's such a special thing. And just to look for those people in your life. And there's so many professionals in San Diego or wherever you live in your community who really would love nothing more than to spend time and pass on what they've gained over the course of their life and their career, including philanthropists. So that can translate into something too, right? Like, look to people and ask those questions.
What they said.
Thank you, Michael, Javier, Suzanne. And I'm going to pivot the conversation a little bit right now and go on the topic of advocacy. So being that there's no roadmap to sort of navigating these complex nonprofit structures, what are ways that you all have navigated advocating for yourself at an organization where you feel you'd like to work on additional responsibilities, have additional duties, or feel like it's time for a promotion? What are those ways that you have navigated those systems?
It's a system for sure. I would say, again, each nonprofit is different. A lot of nonprofits are really horizontal, right, in their structures. They're not very vertical. So when you join a nonprofit, very rarely do you find, except in large ones, right? But in most nonprofits that are small to medium size, it's a really horizontal structure. So there's not a ton of room to move up or down. So when you take a position, I think it's important to understand where you are. Ask that question in the interview. What does the structure of the organization look like? Can I move up? The answer may be no, but that's okay. But you have to go in knowing. So I will say the way that I've navigated is understanding that very flat structure of of those small nonprofit organizations, and understanding that sometimes you have to know when it's time to leave, not on bad terms, but because you're ready to grow, right? So once you build the machine, once you get it moving, once you've done the things, and at least for me, and I found that the changes I wanted to implement are there. We're more efficient, or we're bigger, or we're making more impact, or whatever the thing was, right? That drew me to this organization. If I now say, well, there's nowhere for me to go except CEO, and that ain't gonna happen because he's never retiring. So I got to go find another place. At least in my experience, it's about that network. It's about all those relationships you've been building with people asking for money, but it's really going to the people in the leadership of the organizations that I'm in at the time going, hey, you know what? I really want to be a director of development, or I really want to be X, or whatever it is. And can you help me get there? And most of us will say, yeah, I love helping my employees leave. Not really, but I do. Like if they need to go somewhere, if you need to go somewhere and I don't have a place for you because my structure's too flat, let me help you get there. And a good leader will help you move on. We'll build those connections. So the way that I've navigated is through asking the people that have been above me for help to get to the next level, and then taking that Rolodex. Did you guys ever have a real one? I had a real one. I used to travel. Oh my God. Did you have one? You did. I know. And so I at one point I had two, because then it gets so stuffed, and then I'm like, I don't know, just like A through J go on this side and the others. Anyway. So I had the real life Rolodex before we could put everything in the phone, and those traveled with me, and I kept all those contacts, and you just keep reaching out. So that's how I navigated. And I always was never afraid to apply for a job that looked way intimidating. Like, whoa, I don't think I can do that. I got a lot of no's, but eventually you get a yes. So eventually you find a fit. So apply for the job that's big, scary, because you just might get it.
I like that a lot. And, hearing Suzanne talk about the horizontal, Compass, before everything began, I think I was telling you about a little bit about Compass, and I talked about the area we cover. We have like 24 full-time employees. We're not a huge nonprofit, and every single one of those employees is working 3 or 4 jobs inside the organization. I think I started this off by saying that I just wanted to be inside a Compass. I didn't care. I would wash floors. I wash the floors sometimes. I mean, it is what it is. I originally got hired to be the person that processed the donations coming in, the donations, the checks, all of that. I would write the tax letters, send them out. I'm the director of marketing now. I still do that. That is still a part of my job. As a matter of fact, when we're done with this panel, Wednesdays are my day. I'm going to go and I'm going to process our donations and I'm going to put it out there. You have to understand that this isn't a traditional corporate environment. This isn't the kind of thing where you're going to have a bunch of people doing a bunch of different things. Everybody in that organization needs to be passionate about being there. The growth comes, and again, and I think Suzanne said this, it depends on the organization. I happen to be in a place that is very open to hearing ideas, very open to growing. They want us to have job satisfaction. They want us to be satisfied. So if you present things and you're passionate about it, as long as you're getting your other work done, they'll let you do it. That is not something that you get everywhere else. That's not something that you can find in too many places. But I think new nonprofits are uniquely designed to have environments like that because you need it. You need the people that are going to say, I want to step up and I want to do this, or I think that this is the way to go. And it takes time, but you do need to advocate for yourself. And I think that whatever your structure is, you have to be very clear in your goals for yourself, but you also have to communicate those goals to the other people in the organization. Don't keep it a secret that you want to be the director of marketing or the CEO. Make it clear that this is something, and as long as whoever is in charge or the organization is meeting you and helping you take the steps that are necessary to get there, that is someplace that you're going to want to be. If you're in a place that doesn't have that feeling, you go and you say, well, I want to do this. And the response is, well, we don't have that here. Or, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you can start looking somewhere else. It's all about where you are, but don't be afraid to advocate for yourself because you bring value to the organization. We all work way too many hours for way too little dollars. That's not why we're doing this. That's not why we're in it. And I see a question was asked at 212, why nonprofits? I think this whole panel is answering that question. And if it doesn't get answered, I think we'll revisit it at the end. But why nonprofits? Because you believe in it. It's something that's a part of you. It's you go home, you don't hang up the hat on the wig, the hat, whatever, and you forget about work. It's a part of who you are. It's a piece of you. You believe in it. And that's a unique thing in the field. But you don't be ashamed to want things for yourself. Don't be ashamed to find your value and know your value and bring it to that organization.
Yeah, that's so good. And I always, again, was taught kind of lead from where you're at, and that's what I always kind of share with, people within my organization, or kind of talking with people who are like thinking that my ability to grow as a leader means that I need to have the title and I need to be at some place on the organizational chart. But I expect and try to promote leadership at every step and stage and place in the organization. Again, maybe that also goes back to scouting. That everybody has a role, right? And if you don't wait to get there to become a leader, right? And so thinking about like how you manage your time, how you communicate with others, and by demonstrating your ability to take on and to have that you have what I call the soft skills and the hard skills. The hard skills meaning like, do you know a database? Do you know how to process a GIF? Do you speak another language? Whatever that skill is? And then the soft skills being like, do you have, emotional intelligence, right? Do you know how to like work with people? Can you work in teams? Can you lead a team? Which means that you have to be like a listener and you have to like a lot of things. And I find that the people who are like able to kind of blend those hard and soft skills, as I call it, are the ones that really are the ones that are going to like move up. If you're just like fully invested in like those hard skills, it's going to be hard, I think, for you to be able to move forward in an organization. I think really, understanding people, understanding yourself, your authentic self, being real to yourself, because also in fundraising, we know it's like, if you're not coming with your authentic self of who you are in the world and how you are in your organization, and then you sit down across the table with that person and they're like, tell me about you. And you're like, oh, I thought we were going to talk about our organization. They're like, no, Javier, tell me about you. Like, what's your background? Where are you coming from? Why this organization? What does it mean to you? Those are the same questions that I'm asking people when I'm hiring somebody. So, why this organization? Tell me about you. Like, what's motivating you to be here? It's the same conversations. And I think that more and more today, there's more awareness and I think more openness and value to understanding. And so I think you can also, when you're bringing it to the table and you're talking about that promotion or moving, within your organization, I firmly believe like if one way to grow is definitely to move on, but definitely give the opportunity and make sure. A lot of times when I'm talking to people and mentoring somebody, I'll say like, have you actually communicated with anyone in your organization that you have this aspiration? Have you sought out the opportunity to try out that skill? Going back to what I said early on, education experience, have you actually maybe taken a class? I'm not saying go get a degree, but did you, Fundraising Academy, San Diego Nonprofit Institute, UCSD, programs, wherever you are in the country for that matter, like take a class, get a taste of it, try something out, merge that. And then you bring that back to the table. Because in my own story, in terms of moving up, it was coincidentally at the same time I was finishing the program at UCSD, my successor at the Museum of Us was retiring. Had I not done that program, I wouldn't have had the credential, so to speak, to be qualified to step into that deputy director, director of operations role. And so, part serendipity, but I had put the legwork and the commitment and saying I needed to grow some way professionally. And so it's got to be proactive about it.
Is it okay if I keep going on this for a second? Okay, I wanted to ask permission. I know I'm trying to be cognizant of time. So I really wanted to add to that, Javier. I really loved what he said about that understanding your genuine and authentic self first. this was a piece that was really important to me. About 10 years ago, I figured this piece out. And since that time, my career has done this. Why? Because I figured out what my personal mission statement is. What do I want to do? And who am I? So I have my own personal mission statement, and that drives the organizations I'm looking to work for. That drives my work every day. And so one, I would say that it's important for everybody to have that genuine, authentic self, not just go to therapy, which I also highly recommend, but to really understand who you are. You know, what do you want out of life? And what's your personal mission statement in nonprofit and in your work that you bring to it every day? Second, I wanted to also share internally, I also love what you said, Javier, about asking for opportunities. When I joined Susan G. Komen, I took over as the executive director, and there was a young woman there who was a receptionist, and she got there at 9 and she left at 5. She took an hour for lunch. It was like this. She had no interest in doing any other thing outside of this stuff, right? And I barely knew her because she sat at the front the whole time. And I sat back, you know, in my office. And one day she came to me, and I always, you know, felt like I was an open leader and like I knew all my people. I didn't have that many people to know, but surely I knew them. She came into my office and she said, you know, I don't get to go to lunch. Well, I don't get to go to lunch until 1 o'clock because no one will watch the desk for me. Everybody else goes and has all of these lunches together, and I don't get to go ever. And I was like, oh, okay. Huh. I didn't know. I just didn't know. I hadn't paid attention. I wasn't being a good leader. I did not pay attention. So I said, all right, well, starting tomorrow, I got you for, I'll cover you. So I did that for a week, and then I made a schedule. Everybody could cover her. She was like, really? Absolutely. You should get to eat lunch at a reasonable time. You shouldn't have to wait on all of us. That's ridiculous. You're not less than. She stood up for herself. And then she started asking for more responsibility. I'm going to fast forward you to 6 years. She became my assistant, my executive assistant at Komen. And when I left Komen and moved to Livestrong, guess who I brought with me? Her. Because I can't imagine my professional life without her in it. I need her, I value her, and part of my deal was I'll come, but I need to hire her. I understand you don't have a job opening, but she is a valuable person. So when you talk about how to move up, I use that story because she's a great example. She has skills beyond anything I recognized or knew, but I hadn't taken the time to recognize them. And because she took the time to come to me and go, hey, throw a rock, I could always say, she threw a rock at me, made me pay attention. And now she's my most valuable. She's texted me twice since I've been on this panel asking me how things are going. So anyway, sorry, I just had to add on to what you said and validate that in every way.
The journey of discovering our authentic self. Many of us emerging leaders, you know, we're going into these organizations with very seasoned professionals who have navigated already uncovering their authentic selves, right? So we're discovering what that looks like as we're entering the nonprofit industry, where we may feel kind of lost, or where do I fit into this puzzle? So can you all just share a little bit? I know we're running close on time, but can you all share a little bit about your journey and finding out your authentic self and sort of the steps that took you to get there?
Authentic self are my buzzwords, so I'm going to jump in if that's okay. I can't even believe that you're saying that. Listen, this life is too short to be anybody else. You know, it just is. And you have a real opportunity in your life to listen to yourself, to understand what it is that you want. And we've already talked about advocating at the workplace, but really what you're doing is you're advocating for yourself. And when you have an understanding of what you want to bring, what you want out of life, you'd be amazed at how many things just start falling into place, you know, because you don't have to pretend. You don't, it's like lying, you know, like you say, okay, there are some people that just love to, you know, lying is their default. And then they have to remember all of these little lies that they tell, right? Like, oh, I told that person I couldn't go to dinner because I was having dinner with this person. I can't, like all of these different things. And it gets too much. When you're just yourself, when you're your authentic self, you don't have to worry about those things. You don't have to do it. And it's something else too, because it's a litmus test for you to determine where you're going to put your time. It's if people can accept who you are, and it's not an issue, that is somewhere you want to be. If they're pushing back on you, I see a question in here. It says, how do you navigate working in a relationship with a superior that just doesn't respect you? I got to be honest with you. I'm like trying to figure out how to answer that diplomatically. It might be time for you to find somewhere else. You don't want to be around people that are asking you to not be who you are. Again, it's just too short. And trying to seek that one person's approval or whatever, you're going to lose a lot more than what that approval is worth. So you got to be yourself, especially in a nonprofit. You can't be anybody else. Don't pretend, don't do that. You got to be who you are. You're going to run out of gas if you're trying to be someone that you're not. And the nonprofits will take enough out of you. And I'm saying that I'm not saying that in a dark way. There is need for nonprofits in this world. They need what we do to keep society going. And this is a really important job that you're taking on. The last thing you need to be worrying about while you're doing it is not being who you really are. So I'll get off my soapbox on that one.
Yeah, no, I think I can't actually remember your exact question, Miguel, because I was really so focused on everything Michael was just saying. Can you rephrase your question again?
Yeah, it's how did you navigate developing your authentic self early in your career? What was that journey?
Yeah, I realized I didn't answer that. Sorry.
No. I think it's what you said is just, and we're just having an open conversation there. I think definitely I agree with what you were saying, but I think you did answer that, Michael, in terms of if you start pretending to be somebody to kind of build off of what you said, in your career, if you start trying to be or act in a way that's not really who you are, and then you might find yourself somewhere along in your career that's like, for one, you're not going to be happy, even within the organization. To really kind of identify what are your strong skill sets. And I don't know, if not everybody has the opportunity to do like a 360 review. So I'm just going to throw this out there. But for those that have had the opportunity to, and you could do this informally and formally, to kind of get a sense of yourself. So in a 360 review, you're getting feedback based on, how you see yourself, how other people may be above you, so to speak, your supervisors, and in this case, might be supervisors, funders, people in the community, and then people that you work with laterally, and then people who might like report with you and that you're responsible for. And having done that myself, but also done that with teams that I work with, it's amazing to see where the people who are like really in line with how they see themselves and how everyone else around them sees them, and the ones who it's like polar opposite, and obviously that means that they're not in touch with what's going on and who they are and how they're being perceived. And so I think that's really important to kind of bring us back to kind of a professional understanding, and the benefits of doing that sort of thing is that, how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you, it's a good thing to kind of have a notion of what that is, because it might be that other people are perceiving in a way that you're like, that's not who I am, but you might want to stop and say, why? And oftentimes it's because you're actually projecting something that is not who you are on the inside. You're projecting something who you think other people want you to be, but people can read that, you know?
That way lies madness.
And it is the dagger for fundraising. You know, you have to show up as a person. Like I said, people give to you. They first open the door and allow it. They take a meeting because of you, and they like you. So you have to like yourself. And they give because of the cause that they're passionate about, and they trust you to bring something to them that they are really passionate about, that would interest them. So you have to be comfortable with you before you can ask anybody for anything, you know, whether it's 10 cents or $1 million.
Awesome. Well, I think it's time now for the audience Q&A. And before we start the Q&A, I know a few folks came in late to the panel. But panelists, if you could share, you know, your job title and position, I think there's interest from the audience in hearing where you all work at.
I'll go since I didn't mute myself again. So I am the Chief Strategic Solutions and Programs Officer for the Livestrong Foundation.
I am the Director of Marketing for Compass Community Center, which is the only LGBTQ community center in Palm Beach County, Florida.
Javier Guerrero, by pronounce he, him, Coastal Roots Farm in Encinitas, California, and President and CEO.
Awesome. Thank you all. So I'm going to move on to the Q&A from the audience. And this is a question that is pretty relevant to the pandemic and the current state that we're in. So what is the biggest shift that you all have seen as a fundraiser over the past 15 months?
Well, in the past 15 months, I've watched, if you are not a nonprofit that is in disaster relief, then good luck to you. I've watched a lot of small nonprofits who are not prepared. I've watched them close their doors, right? So I think we often feel like we're nonprofits and we're supposed to be spending every single penny that we make. But the reality is we're a business. We just have a different, nonprofit is a tax status. It's not a business model. So you need to, like, I know this is not a how to build your business 101 nonprofit, but it really separates nonprofits that were built and run by well-meaning, huge-hearted individuals who didn't know how to run a business because they didn't have any reserve. And so even with 7 months of reserve, if that's all you had, that didn't last 15 months, right? If you didn't know how to apply for PPP, if you didn't have an accountant, you know, to me, the shift has been twofold. One, some evolution has happened, right, for nonprofits on the financial management side. And then two, the landscape of nonprofits has changed as well. So we've wiped out a whole lot, and we won't see this for years because the IRS isn't going to tell us, but we won't see it for a long time to see how many nonprofits we've actually lost that are in those smaller sectors that didn't have to submit a 990. So we won't see that, but we'll definitely see that. And then we've seen donors be a lot, at least in my experience, be a lot, especially people at the VC level who would give at a gala. They're not necessarily passionate about your organization. They're just looking, they need to offset some capital gains that year, right? And those are the people that you count on. They like me. So I take them from organization to organization. They're going to give me, hey, you know, well, we'll give wherever Suzanne is 25,000 because that's what we're going to write off. And that's great, but they didn't need that this year. So guess what didn't happen? The gala didn't happen, and I didn't get the big check. So those people who invest for those reasons and not because they're connected to your mission necessarily, I think we have also seen, in my experience, we see those go away as well, which is okay. Bless and release them.
I agree with Suzanne and you know, the reserves. We have, my executive director happens to be, and we kind of joke about it, but she is so tight with the pennies, and everybody's like, you know, like, why can't she just like, like this is needed or something? And she'll say no. And you go, and then this all hit and you're like, thank God she said no to the new mouse pad, and thank God she said no to a new computer screen when my old one worked. Because that's really important. That's a great point, Suzanne, that we're a business just like any other. It's a tax status. It's not a business model. For us, it really taught us that we need to diversify our fundraising efforts. We are an event-heavy fundraising model. We're responsible for throwing Palm Beach Pride. The things that come into the center, the money that we get into the center tends to come a lot of times from events that we throw, either ticket sales or the nature of the event. Like if it's a gala and you're going after big donors, and they like to have a stage while they're giving their money, things like that, to just the after effects, like people show up for Pride and you got a dip jar or something and they're just hitting you. We had so much depending on events. We were 2 weeks out of Palm Beach Pride, which is a 2-day festival with a parade. And we had to cancel it because of COVID. 2 weeks out. We took it on the chin for all of the things, all of the expenses we already had incurred. It really hit, and we had to pivot. We had to start looking at other ways to fundraise. And it did. It was a growing moment for our whole department, our whole organization, to think about how are we going to be getting the money into this center if it's not events? What are the asks? Who are we asking? How are we asking them? And it was really, really important. But again, if it taught me anything, and it's like a stock portfolio, right? You want to diversify. Don't put your bags all in one basket. That was for us. That was our experience.
Well, for Coastal Roots Farm, we were operating in the food and ag business, so to speak. And, big part of what we do is we say nourishing community. So we do that through food that we're making accessible to food insecure families and communities through direct donations, as well as on-site. We have a pay what you can farm stand up to $30. And then we also have a big part of what we do is, outdoor environmental education. And you think about the pandemic, food and the importance. So, we were in the critical sector, and so we never stopped a day. And since we lost our volunteers, we really we had everybody, myself included. I mean, everybody was helping to grow and harvest and do what we need to do around caring for the farm and food production to make sure we continue to get it out there in the community. We saw the demand triple. We're actually growing the food that we're donating. So, we're not like a food bank where it's kind of coming in through grocery stores or whatever that might be. And then we're just redistributing, and we're actually growing, producing, which takes another level of energy and work. And so I think people saw that, and that was good for us in terms of being able to sustain. We didn't let anybody go. We also got the PPP funding, the first PPP loan, as well as the second PPP loan, and the first one being forgiven. But philanthropically speaking, people stayed engaged. And going back to what we said at the very beginning of all this, storytelling and communicate fast and hard. I think it was so critical, not just to be doing the work, but also like communicating and letting the community, the philanthropic community, your current supporters, prospective supporters, and then the media, however you need to get your story out, communicate and do that fast and hard. And so I think it was that bode well for us in terms of keeping the support. And then for the coming off of the summer months and everything, and we had like our farm camp, which we were allowed to do childcare. And then going into the school year, we also pivoted and saw such the demand for outdoor experiences for youth in a safe environment. So we actually created an after-school farm camp, and that became something that was year-round. And so we were able to kind of pivot there. And along the while, we're raising funds for both supporting our regenerative farming / organic food distribution program, getting into those in need, but also supporting making sure accessibility in terms of scholarships, so anyone could come to our farm camps. So I mean, I feel like we're fortunate on those fronts, but it still, yeah, I think for even the organizations and peers in the community that were maybe from arts and culture organizations, and I was in conversation with a lot of my friends and colleagues from different types of nonprofits here in San Diego, and it was also really nice to hear that, you know, people were in their support networks and funders were stepping up to say, you know, we don't want this organization to go away, or we don't want to shutter, or in certain cases, you know, there were the ones that they were like laying off a ton of people and letting people go, and ones that like just barely made it, and now things are starting to open up. They're able to like open back doors, but it's definitely a lot of different experiences out there.
Awesome. Thank you all. It sounds like the pandemic. Oh, I'm hearing myself. Oh, there it goes. Sorry about that. It sounds like the pandemic brought us closer to our values and our mission. So it's really good to hear we're coming out of it a little bit closer to our organizations. And this question is related to education. And this attendee would like to know, are there any programs, certifications, trainings that you all recommend for fundraisers to complete, especially for those who have no educational background in nonprofit management?
To say the best, in my opinion, the best training you ever get is go volunteer. Just go volunteer. Find a cause you are passionate about and pick the 3 organizations in your area that do that thing. And that's the best place to learn. Intern, do it while you're working. Just don't, I don't know. That's, you know, that would be my suggestion. There are over 20,000 organizations across the country that save dogs, literally. I know you can find one that is near you if you're passionate about it, you know. So that would be my suggestion. Whatever training, you know, formal training that you can go to, anything like that, I think absolutely beneficial, you know. But nothing replaces that experience of volunteering and getting to know the people that you might be interested in working with.
And there's definitely, you know, I mean, if San Diego speaking, I mean, there's obviously the Fundraising Academy. Plug for the Fundraising Academy. There's the, you know, Nonprofit Institute at University of San Diego. There's programs through Extension at UCSD. There might even be something at SDSU and Cal State San Marcos. But I think if you were to, you know, look around, when I was talking about the hard and soft skills and the education, you know, complemented with the experience that Suzanne's talking about, that's kind of a winning combo. And I've definitely talked with people along the way who are wanting to either, you know, pivot into this work or just young and upcoming. And I can attest to seeing people like go through this model or approach, and they are now successfully working in fundraising in San Diego right now, or other places. And you can always do it just by taking one class just to see how it feels and what skills you don't need to like fully enroll in the, you know, 2 years, you know, master's program at USC, or, you know, or the full extension program. You can take a class, you know, in one class, you know, be it grant writing or whatever. And then getting the experience that Suzanne mentioned. And, you know, the Fundraising Academy also has a kind of a condensed program as well. And I think there's so many programs out there that are really designed for, you know, the working professional. And I think there's a lot of options in terms of affordability and the cost associated too. And there's right now a ton of options because so much educational learning is happening online. So the reality is, I mean, first of all, there's like stuff on YouTube. There's like, you know, TEDx, you know, talks, TED Talks you can listen to. I mean, you can get your information from a lot of different places if you're looking to capture that wisdom, those nuggets of information. There's a lot of ways to do it. And to be honest, you could enroll in a program in anywhere in the world right now if it's online, if that's something you want to do.
I might also suggest, if you're looking for hard skills, know Excel,
Yes.
know how to build a budget. Know Excel, understand how to build a basic budget, because if you're new to this work and fundraising is where you want to be, you've got to be able to do those things. You're going to be working in events, you're going to be working, right? You're going to build budgets for something. You're going to help somebody do that. So you really need to understand how to read a budget and how to create a budget, and how to do Excel. And then I also would suggest writing, because if you end up writing for grants, you have to be able to tell a story through your words. So take a writing class, go to your community library and take writing classes from there. So from a hard skill set, those are things that I would suggest that do as well. Sorry, Michael, I know.
No, I wanted to piggyback real quick. When Javier said YouTube, I had a very visible reaction, and it's because literally like half of my organization did an Excel training last week, and they were like, Michael, do you want to be a part of it? I was like, no, thanks. I got YouTube. I'm going to be all set. And I know that sounds so savage, but there is so much out there for free that you can get, and it is good information that is applicable. And the only thing that I'll say about the education thing is there are a lot of resources, and Suzanne and Javier went over it. But as far as education is concerned, I really hope that whoever is asking that question, I know that they said no educational experience in fundraising or whatever, but for anybody out there that might not have any a degree or something like that, don't carry that with you as a negative. Okay, I have an advanced degree. I can't tell you that there are people in my organization that don't have any degrees at all that are just absolutely brilliant. They are just out there, they're doing it. She'll probably kill me if I said it out loud, but to get rid of the sake of, my executive director did not go to college. And she is one of the smartest, most intelligent people I know, and runs that organization with such passion and grip. Just if you have that as a chip on your shoulder, if you think you need it on a resume somewhere, just start to move past that. Do the work. You might have to start again washing the floors. I did, but it's going to get there, that experience. Don't carry that. Don't think that you need a piece of paper telling people that you know how to do something. Show people you know how to do it.
Awesome. Thank you all. And I do have one final question before we close. So if you all had the opportunity to talk to your younger self, what would be the number one thing you would tell yourself as it relates to your career development?
Trust yourself. Honestly, I mean, we talked about the authentic thing, and again, I said it was my buzzword, and I don't want to just kind of come back to it, but just understand yourself, listen to yourself, put all the noise aside, listen to who you are, what you want, and then go for it. There's nobody on this planet that you have to impress other than yourself. There's nobody that goes and puts that head down on the pillow with you and worries about the things that you have to worry about. You need to do what is right for you. You cannot, it's like, and I've said this so many times this week, but it's like when you're on an airplane and they're doing the instructions and they say, if in case of emergency and the things pop down from the overhead, what do they always tell you? Put your mask on before you assist other people. You cannot give yourself away if you don't have that solid piece there. Just be honest with yourself, be honest with what you want, and go for it, and don't be ashamed of it. Anywhere else you go, wherever you go, if you have yourself, you're going to be fine. It's going to work out for you.
I have two things. They're kind of like, they sound like they're counter to each other, but I guess they work in some weird balance. Is be ambitious. To thinking about yourself, like to be ambitious in terms of like, but also have patience. And I think that can be hard. I think a lot of times, especially, I see a lot of people right now, they're so quick to like, when's my next promotion? I'm like, well, you know, when I say be patient, it means like, you know, focus on the moment, be present in the moment. And it's really, especially my younger self could always be, you know, I'm always like distracted about everything going on around me. A lot of energy, and sometimes just be calm, be patient, do the work. But also, you know, I think it's always important to look forward. So it's like this weird, like being forward thinking and ambitious, but also being patient. And those sounds conflicting, but like those two things can work together.
I would totally agree. I think I would tell my younger self to listen more.
Oh, that's a good one.
Listen more. So to that same end, and I'm guessing that everybody who's on this call is ambitious, because you've just spent the last hour and a half listening to people you do not know, because you want to go somewhere else, right? You see, or you think you want to be something that you're not yet, and you can't wait to get there. I was in a hurry, just like Javier. I also am ambitious, and I sometimes didn't spend enough time listening to feedback, listening to what others were saying, watching, really paying attention, being present in that moment, and understanding. One gift that somebody gave me before nonprofit is one of my, it was like my third job, but anyway, I didn't care for the band, but on occasion he shared something with me, and he said, grab a pen and a paper, or a pen and a pad. I had a little, this is my pad today, but I had a memo pad. Again, there are these little tiny memo pads that fit in your back pocket, and they have a little spiral at the top. You know what I'm talking about? And he was like, grab a memo pad and carry it with you everywhere you go. And I didn't understand that for years. And today I go through one of these books, you know, it's a new book about every 3 weeks. I write it all down. I write everything down because I'm listening, and I get to go back and actually hear what people are saying. So write it down, because you can't remember it all.
Oh, that listening, I just got to say this. If I could go back and my younger, earlier fundraising self, one time it was the largest ask I had ever made at that point. Total miscalculation. Was not patient enough to share who I was and my authentic self and just have the conversation, because I was so anxious about landing the gift, and asked for a major ask. But then, you know, I asked, and then I was like, oh, okay. I felt so relieved because I had said, I'd gotten that off my chest, right? Like there's the ask. So, and then the person said, well, hold on a second. Like, let's get to know each other. You know, I was like, literally, I had like just met the person, and I was like, will you marry me? And they just said, what is your name? I mean, like, it was really like that. That's how off it was. So yeah, listen, patience, and, you know, be authentic, and let things play out as they should.
People can smell a BS artist really quick, really fast. And I appreciate that, Javier, because that's how I thought I had to do it. I watched my boss. We were talking about mentors. She's awesome at what she does. She can go out there and just, you know, go into a room, and she's walking out with contacts, whatever it is. And I tried doing it like her. It's not how I do it. You know, it's not how I do it. It's you got to find your place, and listening to others, listening to yourself. That's so perfect. I'm really glad you said that. Sorry, I'm like gushing.
All right, well, very wise words from a fantastic and authentic panel. Thank you for everyone for participating in our Q&A and for your incredible questions. Again, you will be receiving a link to access the slide deck and recording in a follow-up email in the next few days. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today, sharing their journey, words of wisdom, sharing your authentic self, and all of the other awesome tips we received today. Thank you all for sharing space with us today. And I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us. Oh, I reset that. So thank you to our audience for your time and participation, and to help us continue to improve our monthly webinar series and ensure we are providing value to you. Please take a few minutes to complete our survey that will appear on your screen at the end of the webinar. We hope you all are happy and healthy, and please enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you all for all that you do to better the communities in which we live, work, and play. And thank you for allowing me to be of service to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.